dive into the untold secrets of Queen Victoria, the seemingly demure monarch who reigned over a global empire. Behind the crown lies a web of intrigue, rebellion, and hidden truths. What don't they want you to know about her? Let's unravel the mysteries together. Number 1. A strict upbringing, a rebellious spirit. Queen Victoria's early years were overshadowed by a strict regimen known as the Kensington system. This rigid structure, designed by her mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her confidante, Sir John Conroy, aimed to isolate Victoria from the outside world and control every aspect of her upbringing. Was it out of love or sheer manipulation? She was rarely allowed to meet other children or explore the world outside the palace walls. Every hour of her day was meticulously planned, leaving no room for spontaneity or the playful joy of childhood. But beneath this forced decorum simmered a defiant spirit. Victoria detested the Kensington system's constraints and often clashed with her mother. Her rebellion was not just a quiet resisting, it was a fierce determination to assert her will. She frequently challenged the rules, demonstrating an early sign of the fortitude that would later define her reign. Could these early battles have forged the indomitable queen she became? When she finally ascended to the throne, her assertiveness with prime ministers and other advisors was a clear testament to a spirit not easily broken by a harsh childhood. Number 2. A royal romance, not entirely fairy tale. The romanticized story of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert is one for the ages, but it was far from a flawless fairy tale. Their relationship, while deeply affectionate, began under significant pressure. Victoria, enamored with Albert from the moment she met him, was determined to marry him, despite his initial hesitations. Was it love at first sight or a royal obligation? She actively pursued Albert, defying the passive role expected of women at the time, and eventually convinced him to marry her. Their marriage, though passionate, was not without its struggles. Victoria's intense dependency on Albert sometimes verged on possessiveness. Was it love or a need for control? They frequently disagreed, particularly on political matters, with Albert often playing the role of the more rational counterpart to Victoria's fiery temperament. After Albert's untimely death in 1861, Victoria's life took a dark turn. She plunged into deep mourning, donning black for the rest of her days and withdrawing from public life. Was her mourning an expression of undying love or a profound escape from a world she could no longer face alone? Number 3. A trend-setting queen, not just a traditional figure. Queen Victoria was more than just a monarch. She was a trendsetter whose influence extended far beyond the political realm. Her choice to wear a white wedding dress when she married Prince Albert in 1840 was revolutionary. Until then, brides typically wore their best dress, regardless of color. Did she realize she was setting a fashion precedent? This simple yet bold choice popularized white wedding dresses, a tradition that continues to this day. Victoria also played a pivotal role in popularizing Highland attire. Her frequent appearances in public wearing tartan helped cement the fabric as a symbol of Scottish pride and heritage. Moreover, her fascination with photography made her one of the first monarchs to embrace this new technology. She commissioned numerous portraits of herself and her family, making the art form accessible and popular among the public. Was she aware of how these images would shape her legacy? Through these seemingly small choices, Victoria influenced fashion and culture in ways that resonated long after her reign. Number 4. A queen with a secret, the hemophilia gene. One of the darker aspects of Queen Victoria's legacy is her role in spreading the hemophilia gene through European royal families. Hemophilia, a blood-clotting disorder, plagued several of her descendants, including her son Prince Leopold, Duke of Albany. How did this genetic curse shape the fate of her lineage? The disease, which primarily affected males, led to the early deaths of many royals and earned the nickname the royal disease. The gene spread was exacerbated by the intermarriage among European royal families, a common practice aimed at maintaining political alliances. Victoria's descendants married into the royal families of Spain, Russia, and Germany, among others, unknowingly passing on the hemophilia gene. This genetic legacy highlights the hidden health struggles within royal families, often concealed from the public eye. Was the queen aware of the suffering her bloodline would endure because of this genetic flaw? Number 5. A queen who liked her wine and maybe more. Queen Victoria's public image was one of staunch propriety, but her private life tells a more complex story. One of her favorite drinks was Vin Mariani, a tonic wine that contained cocaine. What drew her to this peculiar elixir? At the time, such concoctions were not uncommon and were often used for their supposed medicinal benefits. The extent of Victoria's dependence on Vin Mariani is debated among historians, but it raises intriguing questions about her potential reliance on mood-altering substances. Did this habit offer a glimpse into a more vulnerable side of the queen, struggling with the pressures of her position? Some historians even suggest that she may have experimented with other medications during her reign, possibly to cope with her numerous personal losses and the stresses of being a monarch. Was there a darker, hidden side to the seemingly unflappable queen? Number 6. A queen who faced assassination attempts. Queen Victoria's reign was marked not only by grandeur but also by peril. She survived at least 6 assassination attempts, each a stark reminder of the dangers that came with her crown. In 1840, just 3 years into her reign, a young man named Edward Oxford fired a pistol at her carriage. The bullets missed, but the incident was a chilling reminder of her vulnerability. How did she continue with such threats looming? Subsequent attempts were no less harrowing. Assailants wielded homemade explosives, knives, and even an old flintlock pistol. Each attack underscored the precariousness of her position, even as she maintained a calm public facade. Did these threats harden her resolve or leave her perpetually on edge? Despite these dangers, Victoria continued her public appearances, embodying a defiance that resonated with her subjects. How did she balance the need for visibility with the ever-present threat of violence? Number 7. A queen who ruled over a vast, and sometimes brutal, empire. Victoria's reign coincided with the height of the British Empire, a period marked by both immense power and profound brutality. While she did not directly control military actions, she was the symbolic head of an empire that spanned continents. How much did she know about the atrocities committed in her name? The British Empire's expansion often involved violent conquest and exploitation of indigenous populations, practices that left a lasting scar on many regions. Victoria's role as the figurehead of such an empire is a complex legacy. On one hand, she represented the zenith of British power and influence. On the other, her reign is inextricably linked with the darker aspects of colonialism. Was she complicit in these actions, or merely a passive observer? Her legacy is a reminder of the duality of empire, the grandeur and the oppression, the pride and the guilt. How do we reconcile these conflicting aspects of her rule? Number 8. A queen who mourned profoundly. Personal loss profoundly shaped Queen Victoria's life and reign. The death of her beloved Prince Albert in 1861 was a blow from which she never fully recovered. How did this personal tragedy influence her public duties? She retreated into deep mourning, wearing black for the remainder of her life and significantly reducing her public appearances. Victoria's sorrow extended beyond her husband's death. She outlived several of her children and many close friends, each loss deepening her grief. Her prolonged periods of mourning often frustrated her advisors and the public, who expected their queen to remain a visible and stabilizing presence. Was her deep mourning a sign of strength or weakness? Despite the criticism, Victoria's mourning practices also highlighted her deep capacity for love and loyalty, traits that endeared her to many of her subjects. How did she balance personal grief with her responsibilities as a monarch? Number 9. A technological queen. Despite her image as a traditional figure, Queen Victoria was surprisingly progressive when it came to technology. She embraced photography, becoming one of the first monarchs to use this new medium extensively. How did these images shape public perception of her and the monarchy? She commissioned numerous portraits, making her one of the most photographed people of her time. These photographs helped humanize her in the eyes of her subjects, bridging the gap between the royal family and the public. Victoria was also an early adopter of the telegraph, using it to communicate with distant parts of her vast empire. This technological openness helped to modernize the monarchy and maintain its relevance in a rapidly changing world. Did she foresee the impact these technologies would have on her legacy? Her willingness to embrace innovation underscored a forward-thinking aspect of her reign, ensuring that the monarchy kept pace with the times. How did her technological savvy influence future generations of royals? Number 10. A queen who advocated for social reform sometimes. Queen Victoria's privileged position did not render her entirely oblivious to the social issues of her time. She expressed concern for the working class and supported some reforms aimed at improving their conditions. How did her perspective on social issues evolve over her reign? Her views were often influenced by her advisors and her sense of propriety, leading her to support gradual rather than radical change. Victoria's support for social reform was cautious and measured. She believed in maintaining the established social order, often resisting more radical proposals. Did this cautious approach hinder or help the progress of social reform? Despite her conservative leanings, her reign saw significant changes in British society, many of which laid the groundwork for future reforms. And that's it from this video. See you in the next one.